My name is Mike Fuhriman. Welcome to a presentation on how to be a dynamic presenter, or how to improve your presentation skills and make your presentations, be they workshops, speeches, whatever, make them more dynamic, more interesting, more entertaining to listen to. Before we get into anything, let's cover my favorite subject, which is me. I've been with Stephen Henniger for about 8 years. Started out as a student services director, taught some psychology courses. In there, taught some sections on public speaking and presenting. Before I was here, though, before I was at Stephen Henniger, I was a corporate trainer for about 6 years, and became the training department manager. Basically what I'm telling you is over the last about 15 years or so, my job has been either to teach, present, or to critique others on their presentation skills and offer ways that they can make things better. So basically, this presentation is just kind of what I've picked up over the years of things you should and shouldn't do during a presentation. Hopefully there'll be something here or a few tips or things you maybe haven't thought of before that can help you and help you as you're meeting and talking in front of people and trying to present your material. So, in your preparation, first off, and I'd say preparation is probably the most key part of any presentation to make sure it's successful. It happens way before you ever even walk in the room. And obviously, and that's the case with most things, it's definitely the case when it comes to presenting to people and giving presentations and workshops and so forth. So, in your preparation, obviously, you don't prepare, don't think things through clearly. But first and foremost, you've got to practice. The mistake that a lot of people make is they'll sit down beforehand and they'll write out what it is they're going to say, and they'll take their little notes, and then they'll sit down at their desk or whatever, and then read through their presentation. Okay, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to say that, and then when I get there, I'll say this, and I'm going to talk about that. Okay, that is not good enough. You need to take some time, and I would go set up a room somewhere, even if it's just your little bathroom or whatever, but set up a situation where you can stand up and pretend that you're actually there in the environment and give your presentation. You need to actually give it and practice giving it. Run through it again and again and again. The more times, the better for every presentation that you're going to get. I'd say at least 3 to 5 times you should have stood up and given that presentation to either a blank wall or a mirror or whatever. Because once you're in front of people, you need to actually voice the things you're going to say if you don't want to trip up and stumble over your words and that type of thing. So practice, practice, practice. And when you practice, for the love of Buddha, you've got to time it. You know, the huge mistake when people make presentations is and if you're like me, I had this nasty habit. It's been that way since about 4 years old. 4 years old, I'd be giving talks in church. I'd be standing up talking to people, and I look down in the audience to see my mother, and my mother would be in the audience looking at me going, slow down. Because when I get up in front of people, I get hyped, I get jazzed, I get nervous, I start talking really fast. I get really nervous, I get talking really fast, blah, blah, blah. And even though I've timed it at home, or had some idea where I thought it was going to do once I got in front of everybody, I actually got through a little bit quicker than I'd planned. And you need to kind of grasp that and understand that, and when you practice it, have actually timed it so that when those things start to happen, you can adjust accordingly. Especially in our situation for high school alliance coordinators, the presentation that we do, time is huge. It's not just because even in any presentation you do, one of the worst things that can happen is to get to the end, and a lot of people will have the most important part of their presentation in the last 10 minutes, right? So they get down to the last 10 minutes of presentation, right, and they're trying to drive their point home, and if they've gone 10 minutes over, they've lost everybody because nobody's listening to them right now. Only thing they're thinking is, and meanwhile, as they're talking, you're like Charlie Brown teacher. They're not hearing anything you're saying because the only thing they're thinking about is how they want to go outside and slash your tires or whatever because you're going over. The opposite thing would be if you go under, and then you've kind of ripped off the people who asked you to come talk. They wanted you to talk for a half hour, and you only talked for 20 minutes. Well, you kind of ripped them off. But even more so in our situation as high school presenters, high school alliance coordinators, time for us is essential. Because yes, we have valuable and important workshops that we give to students that help them and can help improve their lives and help them reach the success and things that they want when they graduate. But really, ultimately, one of the most important parts about our presentation that we're trying to do is generate leads. And that part happens at the end. And if you've taken up the whole time and suddenly you look up and you only have 3 minutes left, really, you've just fallen flat on your face. Or as the way Eric likes to talk about, it's like you just drove the whole length of the field, got down to the goal line and fumbled on the goal line. You accomplished everything you wanted to do. You were dynamic. You were fantastic. It was interesting. People liked listening to talk to you. You drew them in, and then you got to the goal line where you were going to talk about the school and generate the leads, and you ran out of time and fumbled at the goal line. Okay, for us, we've got to make sure that we know how long we're taking, how long it takes us to cover each piece, and then we can. And because what you're going to find is that things that happen in the classroom. And you're going to have to adjust accordingly. I can't tell you how many times I've shown up to a classroom and the teacher said, yeah, class starts at 8 o'clock, but when you got there, they said, oh, we have a few things we got to go over here real quick first. And then they go over their little teaching thing and it takes 10 minutes. Now suddenly you have 10 minutes less than what you normally have. And if you don't know your workshop well enough and haven't practiced it enough and timed it enough, you don't know the things you need to take out, because there are going to be some. And you're going to need to take them out. I don't care how fantastic they were, what a great part of the workshop was. The most important part of the workshop is generating leads. Don't forget that. Make sure we know where we are time-wise. Okay, secondly, know your audience. Understand who it is that you're talking to. All right? For example, we have a great motivation presentation that we give. As one part of that motivation presentation, we like to talk about Roger Bannister. Okay, Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile, if you're familiar with that story. Again, Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile back in 1955. 1955, he broke it. You look at that picture, there's Roger Bannister. I finally asked myself, who is more relatable to high school students? People we're talking to. Roger Bannister? Now, and I still cover Roger Bannister, because I think it's a fantastic story, and it's good to let people know about the past and things that happened and how the world is different now than it used to be. But I always like to follow that back up with, hey, a more modern example of somebody who did the impossible is Travis Pastrana. Any of you are familiar with who Travis Pastrana is? BMX racer, pulled off a double backflip in the X Games about 3-4 years ago, thought to be impossible. He does all kinds of other crazy things, but somebody that definitely high school students can relate a lot more with. Most have seen his show on TV, know who he is, seen some of his stunts. And again, when you're talking about relatable and knowing your audience, there are jokes that work and there are jokes that not. And the person that can relate to their audience in that way and show them, hey, I understand the way you see the world, and I relate to that, is the person that draws the audience in. Okay, next, when it comes to the presentation, every presentation is really just kind of like a conversation, right? But it's just you're having a conversation with anywhere from 8 to 800 people. And just like every conversation, but most happens with most people, is you're standing up, when you walk up to that front of the room, there's that awkward silent moment. Just like if you've ever been last time you were sitting alone in a car with somebody you didn't know very well. Or maybe alone in a room with somebody you didn't know very well. There's kind of that whole awkward silence thing. You're sitting there. If you've ever been on a blind date, you know what that's like, right? Huh. Nice weather we're having. I like bread. Or whatever. But there's kind of this awkward moment. And every time that you walk up as a presenter to start to present a class, in the audience, as human beings, we like to get along with other people. We're social animals. And really, unless you've got some frenemy in the audience, everybody in the audience wants you to succeed for that reason. And they're sitting there in their desk or their chair or whatever going, oh, I hope this person does good. Oh, I hope this isn't awkward, because I really don't like things to be awkward. I hope that I don't have to be embarrassed for this person, because I will be so... I hope they do. And so when you walk up in front of the room, start your presentation, that's what there is this whole awkward... whatever, as you begin to start your presentation. And what breaking the ice is taking that awkwardness. There's some things you can do to break that ice and get through that, let everybody relax. Okay, we can let our hair down. It's all going to be okay. This presenter's large and in charge, or whatever. He's in control, and it's going to be okay, and I don't have to worry about being nervous or whatever. Some examples. Well, actually, before we get into avoid distractions, maybe I can back up. Some examples of things you can do to break the ice. I know a lot of people like to come in, they'll just take a minute and talk about themselves. In the workshops that we do, it's not a bad idea. There was a presenter here I saw one time, I thought it worked really, really well. You just start out, and as you're handing out these cards, it is actually a good icebreaker, because it gives them something to do and they're not thinking about it. Here's these cards. Hey, I need to have you fill them out. Take a second. Make sure you at least get in there the year you graduate. You know what? The real thing these cards do is let my boss know I'm doing my job. I'm not making stuff up or standing on a street corner or whatever. But so you at least make sure we get your name and your information on there, and the year that you graduate, so that I can let my boss know that I did in fact talk to a class full of seniors or whatever. And that gets them working on that. And then a natural segue as they're doing that I like to do, and I've seen other people do as well, is say, hey, by the way, so while you're filling that out and telling you all about you, or telling me all about you, I'm going to take a second and tell you all about me. And then we go in and kind of talk about our credentials and where we're from and that type of thing. That's a natural icebreaker. There are others. There are a lot of things you can do. I have an example I could do. If I really had people in this room, I would call on somebody at this point and ask them if they'd ever seen it. I'd start out and say, have you ever seen a cheetah? You know what a cheetah is, right? Seen them on TV, running around yellow. You know those black things all over them. What are they called? Spots. Good, spots. So say spots for me. They say spots. I say spots 5 times. And we go this whole rigmarole saying spots, 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 spots. When they finally get to the end, I real quickly say, what do you do to get to a green light? Now, 99.9 times out of 100, because they've been saying spots, 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 and they've been spelling S-P-O-T-S, S-P-O-T-S. When you say, what do you do to get to a green light? They say, stop. And they say, wait, stop? You get to a green light, you do what? No, I go, huh? And then everybody, and again, it's icebreaker. Everybody kind of laughs, relaxes. Then I'll usually take that and tie it in. If I was going to do that for today's presentation, I'd say, hey, why did that person say stop? And people say, well, it's because you got her thinking about something else. I say, yeah, that's right. And you know what? When you get in front of people, and you're standing there and you're nervous and you're trying to remember everything you're doing, if you haven't practiced appropriately, you can end up saying the things that you did not mean to say and looking really silly. So the key point would be preparation. I would segue into preparation that way, if I didn't want to take a minute to introduce myself. Today I took a second to introduce myself, credentials, the things I know, and why we're going to come over. But there has to be something, some type of icebreaker that lets everybody relax and know that it's okay, and they can be comfortable and listen to you talk. All right, next biggest part of this presentation is about avoiding distractions. We're going to cover a lot of different distractions and things that can happen to people. And the problem with distractions is they take people away from your message. What you want people to be paying attention to is the message that you're trying to present. And as presenters, we can do things that make them listen to that, or we can distract from that so that they're not paying attention to you anymore. And again, like I said, go into Charlie Brown teacher mode. And nobody's hearing anything you're saying. So with that, first distraction, room movement. There was a couple different mistakes that people used to make with room movement, or several different mistakes. We used to call them different things. First one we would call them is you grow roots to the spot. You just grow roots where you have people just stand in one place and do their presentation. Today I want to tell you about something that's very important. And you know, when growing roots to the spot isn't the end of the world, but it's more interesting if you'll move around. The eye likes movement. People like to see movement is more interesting. One of the things that I do for Stephen Seneca College, at least at my campus, is we do that graduation slideshow for graduates when they're, the whole graduation ceremony. We have that slideshow, we show people's face, pictures, and play some music or whatever. And when you do those slideshow type things, the general rule of thumb is that you don't have a picture up for more than 3 seconds. Because if you go more than 3 seconds as you're watching that slideshow, you start to get kind of bored. Okay, yep, seen it. Move along. However, when I do the slideshow, I do 5 seconds because we have to add that extra couple seconds for people to go, oh, there's my buddy! Ah, it's John! Oh, John! Oh, it's Sally! And they do that whole, and the crowd erupts, whatever. So I go a little bit longer, but the point is this. With the software and stuff we have nowadays that we use to make these slideshows, you can do, pans and zooms on people's face and zoom in slowly or whatever. If I use one of those features, I can actually hold that attention. And if you only go 5 seconds, in fact, you'll watch it and go, hey, I was not looking at that picture. You go 9 seconds, triple what they say you're supposed to do, and you still hold people's attention, and you don't get bored looking at the picture, and the only thing that's happening is the picture's just moving slightly. And it's just because there's movement. So again, and one thing I should tell you is these things I'm going to go over, it's not like when you get done with your presentation, people are going to walk away and say, wow, I really like that person's presentation because he did this, he did this, he did this, he did this, or she did this well, and she did that well. They won't really know why it was interesting. They'll just know when they walk out, yeah, I like listening to that person. What I'm saying is that, yes, this stuff with room movement, nobody's going to walk away from a presentation saying, wow, I really like that presentation because the person moved around the room well. They won't really even know why it was that it was interesting to listen to you. But they'll just walk away saying, yeah, I didn't get bored talking to that guy was talking, or that gal. All right? Little teeny tiny things that almost kind of happen subconsciously that people may or may not really even pick up on. But one big one is room movement. And yes, standing in one spot is not incredibly distracting, but it gets kind of boring. And it's harder to draw people in when you're frozen and rooted to the spot. If I got people sitting over this side of the room, if I move over this side of the room occasionally, I'm drawing them into me, into my presentation. I'm drawing them into my message. And room movement helps you do that. Another mistake people make with room movement, though, again, because they're nervous, is they'll start pacing, right? Pace back and forth, and they're going to do this, or they'll, as they step, they do the exact same movement over and over again. They'll say this, and they'll finish their sentence and rock back, and then they'll kind of rock forward again as they're talking what they talked about. And in their mind, they're thinking, hey, I'm doing a really good job with movement because I'm moving all over the place. No, you're not moving, you're twitching almost. And again, it becomes weird, becomes distracting. Your room movement needs to be random and sporadic. I one time gave feedback to a gal because she was a pool sitter. We call them pool sitters because you write something up on the chalk on the whiteboard or whatever, and then you don't want to leave the whiteboard. It's like you're stuck here to the side of the pool. Are afraid to leave. And I gave her feedback and said, hey, move around the room. In fact, if you want, move around the back room. I don't care. Walk around. Do something. So next time I was up there, she was doing a presentation again later, doing some training, and I was watching her, and she was trying to take that feedback that I'd given her. She stood up in front of everybody, and she was talking about something that was very important that we all needed to know. And then right in the middle she was talking, she would suddenly turn and start walking around the room. She'd come to the corner. She'd make her, and she'd do this little lap around the room, and then she'd come up in front. When she'd reach the front again, she'd stop and she'd talk here for about 30 seconds or so. And after 30 seconds, then she would take off again, start walking. It was like watching NASCAR, really slow motion from the center track. Really distracting, because again, well, where is she going? What is she doing? Oh, okay, there she comes. All right, and your movement needs to be natural and random, sporadic. The guy I like to talk about when we're talking about room movement is George Costanza. If you remember on the Seinfeld episode where he's trying to teach Jerry how to lie, he tells Jerry, it's not a lie if you truly believe it. And it's not this weird movement if you truly act like there was some reason you needed to walk over wherever you went. I have no reason for being right here right now. No reason to be here. But because though I walked there like there was some reason why I needed to go, people buy into it, it's okay. But you gotta act like it's natural, not planned, but just kind of a movement that needed to be done. I got no reason to walk up here and talk to the board right now, but make it random, make it sporadic, and not so self-conscious about what it is that you're trying to do. Okay, make it flow, make it seem natural, and again, just that slight movement will draw people in. The other thing that room movement is really good for is crowd control. When we were hiring trainers back in my training manager day, we used to ask people the question. We'd say, okay, tell me, if you were teaching a class and you had somebody that was sitting over here and they weren't paying attention, and they were talking to their friend or they were sleeping or whatever, what would you do? Number one answer when we ask those questions in interviews would be, I'd call on him. I'd call on him. What did I say, John? I'd call him out in front of everybody, make him feel stupid, so that then he could hate my guts, and everybody else in the room would be really, really awkward because mom and dad are fighting. Not really, but I'd call him out. Would be the response, and that's again not the end of the world. Lots of technique that a lot of people use, but really, if you think about it, that technique or that tool to quiet people down is about third or fourth on the list of things you should do. Very first thing you can do has to do with room movement. If I have a person over here who's talking and and again I'm kind of tied into where the camera is, but just to stay in view of the camera, if I had a person who's sitting right here and they're talking and won't shut up, I don't have to call them out. If I move around the room, in fact, I just come over here and get in their space. I invade their space a little bit, and now they're sitting there looking, he's me, what's he doing here? And immediately kind of intruded upon their little conversation, whatever that was happening that shouldn't be happening because I'm up here talking. And if they really, and that's still the time I can lean down and start tapping on their desk. Or put my hand on their desk, or whatever. Haven't called this person out, haven't drawn a whole bunch of attention to him or anything. I just came and kind of got in their area and let them know, hey, I'm talking. Without having to say, hey, I'm talking. Great crowd control. Really effective way that's just subtle and keeps people attentive and respectful and polite as the way they should be. So that's the other great thing about room movement is effective crowd control. Okay, next. Eye contact. There's a couple different mistakes people will make with eye contact. And again, it's because they're nervous, right? So people's number one fear is speaking in public. I don't know if you knew that. That's people's number one fear, and everybody's nervous about it a little bit, even if you've done it forever. And so there's mistakes people make. First one that they'll make is they'll look at their paper or down the ground. Hi, I want to tell you today about something that everybody should know because we're sitting here looking down. Oh, there are a lot of people out there. Oh, okay. Well, I want to tell you something that's more important. Oh, they're still there. And And again, when you're just looking at your paper, looking down, just kind of just put this plexiglass in front of you and the whole rest of the audience. And now you've kind of become detached. And the moment you become detached, now they're going to start thinking about other things. Now they're going to pull out their iPhone, or whatever, start playing Angry Birds, because you've just separated yourself from them. You don't want to do that. Eye contact is the way that you break that plexiglass barrier and make sure that you're drawing people in. The other mistake people make is say, okay, I don't want to look down at my paper because that's bad. I saw somebody tell me once, looking down at your paper's bad, so I'll keep my eyes up. But then what they do is they start doing, we call it staring off into the horizon. Okay, so there's something today that I want to talk about that everybody should know. And pretty soon the audience is going, what is he looking at? Is there a spider out there? What's going on? Trying to figure out where it is that you're staring. Is there a clock? What's going on? And if there is a clock, that's okay if you're trying to keep track of your time. But eye contact, just like in a normal conversation, and again, try to remember that. Yeah, you're talking to 800 people, 500 people, 20 people, but it's still just a conversation. And if you want to let people know that whatever you're telling them is important, then you look them in the eye. And eye contact, as you're conducting, should be that same type of thing. I would say in a 10-minute conversation, a 10-minute presentation, if you got 25, 30 people in the room, you should have made eye contact with every single person in that room at least once. Because again, you're not going to make it weird and single somebody out, staring down as you're talking. Okay, so today as we talk about presentation, because now, not only is this person here freaked out, but everybody else in the room right now is going, does he know her? Why is he staring at her? What, or whatever. And it will become distracting again. But eye contact, at least for that 2 seconds that you're staring at somebody, looking them in the eye, oh, he's talking to me. Oh, he's looking at me right now. And it draws people in. It makes the presentation more interesting, easier to listen to because they feel part of it because of the eye contact that you're doing. So, again, it's like room movement, random and sporadic. You should be making eye contact with everybody throughout your presentation and drawing everybody in the room in. All right, all the rest, the other distractions of mistakes people make. First off, dress. This is not a fashion show. Okay, this isn't the time to be showing off how cool your fashion is, whatever. Again, you want people to pay attention to what the message is, what it is that you want to tell them, not necessarily how fancy your tie is or how up you are on the latest fashions or whatever. So just like with a job interview and so forth, you kind of follow the same principles. Okay, we're going to think conservative, conservative, conservative. It's not the time to wear your big, huge Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer tie that blinks every 10 seconds. Because now every time it blinks, everybody, oh, what? Oh, that's good. Oh, I wonder how he keeps the battery for. What? Oh, look, it flashed again, or whatever. And they're thinking about that rather than what your message is, and you become Charlie Brown teacher again. Also, not the time to wear. And I think it's just too crazy and distracting from your message. For gals, I don't know. I guess I'll do the impersonation, but it's not high heels. Not a good time right now. When you're presenting, big gigantic shoes of doom that nobody knows how to walk in, is trying to walk around, present. Very distracted. Conservative footwear, conservative clothing, conservative hairstyles, conservative jewelry, all those things to be conservative, 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 because you don't want them drawn away from anything more than what the message is you want to tell people. All right. Also with dress, I would take a second to make sure things are in order. I was one time teaching a class. Well, before we tell you that story, some of you might have seen that commercial a while back where the guy was in a job interview and he had a stain on his shirt. And every time he tried to talk, the stain would talk, and it's like, and the guy couldn't get anything through. And so what I like to tell people is before you go and do your workshop, as you're getting out of your car to go in or whatever, take a second, look in the at least in the window or whatever, and make sure that everything is in order. That everything's tucked in that needs to be, everything's zipped up that needs to be. The last thing you want to do is go into a presentation and have toilet paper stuck to your shoe or whatever. I was one time, the story I was going to tell you, I was teaching a psychology 101 class at night, and halfway through the class we had a break, and I lived fairly close to the campus. So for the break, real quickly, I ran home. My wife had some dinner for me. Picked up the kids, was kind of bouncing one on my knee in a minute, gave them a hug, ate my dinner, and then left and came back to work. So I'm there teaching the rest of the class starts. I'm teaching the last half of the night, and I've been teaching about an hour. And one thing that's really key as a presenter, and we'll talk about this later, and really this is the difference I have found between a good presenter and a poor one. And the poor ones can get better, but they'll never kind of get to where this good presenter is. And the unfortunate thing is most of the time I've seen it, it's just a talent you either have or you don't. And that is being able to read the audience. Be able to stand in front of people and get a vibe. And as I'm standing in front of everybody, I got this vibe that, man, I'm just not getting through to everybody. As I'm looking around the room, it's just like I'm talking to brick wall. I mean, nobody's paying attention. I'm just not getting the reaction and the getting through to the audience as I normally do. And finally, about halfway, well, we've been going for about an hour, and a student in the back raised their hand and finally said, Mr. Fuhriman, what's in your pocket? And I looked down in the shirt pocket, reached in, and pulled out a pacifier. I've been holding one of the kids, pulled the pacifier out of the mouth, or he did, or whatever, and put it in my pocket. And you think about a pacifier in a pocket, just this knobby little whatever just protruding out of my little pocket. And as I'm walking around, and when I pulled that out, I heard 3/4 of the class. I mean, it was audible. They went, oh. I'm up here talking, thinking I'm doing whatever, everything's fine, because I haven't noticed that there's this weird knobby thing sticking out of my pocket, and nobody's listening to me. They're just looking at that going, what is that? What could that, is he got, what? I don't know what that is. I know what, no, I don't know what that is. And basically at that point, when I realized what had happened, we just backtracked and I started over. We just took that hour and threw it out and started all over, because I knew that nobody listened to a thing I'd said. So again, it's important to take a moment before you do your presentation and make sure everything is in order. We don't have anything out of place that would distract from your message. So it's an important part of dress. Okay, next, hands. You know, hands are these wonderful, amazing creations of nature, or whatever it is you believe, or whatever. These artists have done renditions of hands, or these wonderful, amazing things with opposable thumbs that can do all this great stuff until you get up in front of everybody. And suddenly when you get in front of people, they're these awkward, I don't know what to do with my hands. And suddenly they become these big, awkward, floppy things. Nobody knows what to do with them. So they make some mistakes. First one, I'm going to stick them in my pocket. I'm going to stick them in my pocket, walk around the room. Now as you're walking around, kind of, look, it just doesn't look very professional. I mean, it's okay for a second or two. And all this stuff, it's not the end of the world if you do it for, a little bit. But for the most part, you need to keep your hands out of your pockets. Keep your hands out of your pockets, doesn't look professional. And also, more of the time, likely you'll have something in your pocket, like your keys or whatever, which, by the way, I would suggest not doing. You want to be jingling everywhere you go. But if you got something in your pocket, then you're down there, now you're doing all kinds of, people want, well, won't go there, but just keep your hands out of your pocket, okay? Next mistake people make with hands, they'll put them behind their back. Okay, I can't put them in my pockets, but I still don't want them out there where everybody can see them. So put them behind my back. You ever seen Alfred Hitchcock? Now you kind of become an Alfred Hitchcock episode. So you walk around talking. Again, just kind of begins to look kind of awkward and strange. I wouldn't do that. People, next thing they'll do is put them up in front. Now you look like you're covering up for a soccer kick, which again, weird, don't do it. People try to do this sometimes. Now you become preacher man. Again, can become distracting. So the question becomes, and the other big mistake people will do, like I used to do this one all the time, I don't have an example to give you, but you'll pick up a pen. Pick up some type of writing utensil. If it's one of those dry eraser markers, you pick those up. And now because you've got something in your hand and you're nervous because there's all these people out there, you start doing this little, like with those dry eraser markers, you can click, 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 click. Or worse, you've got a pen that clicks. And now it's like click, 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 click. Now it's like you're doing Spanish dancing up here. And drives everybody nuts. I mean, after about 5 minutes of listening to you go click, 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 people want to gouge out their eyes. And again, has become incredibly distracting and taken away from your message. So keep everything out of your hands. I used to toss something. Now everybody's paying attention. He got it. He dropped it, or whatever. And it becomes a distraction. So what do you do with your hands then? Don't do with them? The answer is, forget about them. If you're a person who likes to use them when they talk, okay, good. You can use them when you talk. You don't get all crazy with it or whatever. But use your hands as you need to. And then when you're done, let them hang at your side. If you forget about them, everybody else will too. It might seem weird at the beginning. Don't just be there, okay, keep my hands at my side, waddling around, like a penguin or whatever. Just let them hang. And if you forget about your hands, everybody else will forget about them too, and it will be fine. And also, again, if while you're talking, you put it in your pocket, it's not the end of the world. I've seen people who, after I've given a presentation like this, become so self-conscious about everything they're doing that in their mind, you can see it working. I'm talking. Oh no, put my hand in my pocket. Oh, I've just screwed up. Oh, I just screwed up. Oh no, now I'm not looking at the audience. And they just completely fall apart. And then I feel bad because it's like my advice didn't help, it made things worse. But what I'm telling you is, it's okay to do that for a second or whatever, as it happen, but if you catch it, just take your hands back out. Keep them out. Let them hang at your side if you're not using them or whatever. Don't let that become a distraction. And again, like I told you, all this stuff, nobody's going to walk away from your presentation saying, wow, I really liked his presentation because his dress was really sharp, he didn't have a Rudolph red-nosed reindeer tie, and he put his hands in a good place. Nobody's going to know that. They just know when you do it wrong. And they'll walk away when you do it right saying, okay, it was a good presentation. I don't really know why, but I just like listening to that guy. Tone. I don't think you can hear that, but that's Ben Stein saying Bueller there. I only know two people. Ben Stein's one. Stephen Wright's the other guy. I only know two people who made a living and have been effective using monotone in their speech. Ben Stein's one. Visine eyes are clear eyes. Bueller. You know who Ben Stein is, right? The other guy is Stephen Wright. I don't know if you know who Stephen Wright was, but he was really popular in the 90s for a little while. His 15 minutes fame is kind of up, so he's done. But for the 90s, he used to do a comedy routine in his long, shaggy hair, and he'd stand up in front of the microphone. His whole routine was stuff like this. He'd stand and say, I lost my socks. I called information. They said, look behind the couch. There they were. People go nuts. People go nuts over the guy in the 90s. Thought he was hilarious. Like I say, I don't see him that much anymore. But the point is, you are not Ben Stein and you are not Stephen Wright. And for you, tone, and by tone, I'm not talking about high and low. I'm talking about things like speed, volume, pacing. All those things are things that need to change. They can't be the same all the time. Sometimes when you're talking about something that's really important, you need to get quiet. I'm not telling you anything important right now. But because I got quieter, it sounds like I am. Sometimes you're going to get quiet. Sometimes you're going to get really loud because this stuff matters. Sometimes you're going to slow down. Other times you're going to speed up because it's something you really, really need to understand. But it's got to vary. Okay, these things need to be changing all the time. Your speed, your rate, your volume, up and down. And again, nobody's going to walk away from the presentation going, that presentation was really good because sometimes he talked loud and sometimes he talked quiet. They'll just walk away knowing I like listening to the guy or gal, whichever it may be. So change that tone. Tone and those things need to change constantly as you give your presentation. Next, verbal crutches. Everybody has them. Everybody does them. Don't tell me you don't. If you don't, you're not human. And by verbal crutches, what I'm talking about are things like and like, and Everybody says them at least a little bit. It's not the end of the world if you throw one out there now and again. The time it becomes a problem is when I've been listening to you talk for 10 minutes and the only thing I know in 10 minutes is that you have said 86 times in 10 minutes because I've had to start counting. I don't know when too many is too much or when you've done it too much. I just know when I hear it. One of the worst things you can do, or one of the worst tricks anybody can play on you, is to have somebody videotape your presentation. Videotape you while you're talking and then make you watch it later. Everybody hates to hear their voice recording, right? Video is a million times worse. And if you watched yourself, but as a presenter, as an alliance coordinator for Stevens Henniger, at some point you will have yourself videotaped. And when you watch it, you're going to pick up on all these things. And if you find when you watch it that you're saying or a lot, just work on it. It's not the end of the world, but take some time and roll through your presentation and work on not saying or The reason why people do it, especially and okay, and like, and I'm like, and she's like, those are different things. If you're doing those, you've just got to work on getting them out of it. Get them out of your speech. And everybody does it at least a little bit. The reason why they do it is because two things are happening. One, you're trying to gather your thoughts. What was I going to say next? And the second thing that's going on in your head is, well, there can't be any silence because I'm supposed to be talking because I'm the talking person. That's my job, to stand up and make sure I'm filling the void of silence all the time, so there's never going to be any silence up here at any time at all. So if I'm talking, I have to think for a second. I can't let it be silent. I have to say, well, I try to think what I'm going to say. And that's ridiculous. In fact, there's nothing wrong with silence in your presentation. Think about that. I'm messing with you. There's nothing wrong with silence in your presentation. In fact, that allows people a chance to think. And if you find you're saying and a lot as you watch yourself or listen to yourself, just give your exact same presentation, take the time to think about what it is you want to say, and just let there be silence for a minute while you do that. Gather your thoughts in silence. It's not the end of the world. In fact, it can make your presentation more powerful. Silence can be a very, very good thing when you're presenting to people if you use it effectively. Don't be afraid of silence. Don't be afraid of letting it be, silent while you think, because while you're thinking, guess what? Everybody else is thinking too. And they're thinking about what it was you just said. Silence is okay. If you find these verbal crutches, and everybody does them a little bit, just work on them. It's okay. All right, but again, I just don't want to hear it too much. And if you see it happening too much, then you got to work it. You'll find that you'll pick up new ones. After I've been teaching for a number of years, I found I was always saying, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And after I watched that, I realized, I got to get rid of that. And I had to change it and start working on it. Does that make sense? Anyway, work on verbal crutches if you have them. They make the presentation distracting. Okay, let's talk about PowerPoint for a minute. Because we have these wonderful PowerPoints that we use here at Stevens Henninger for our presentations. They're fantastic. And also the great thing about it is with Eric and Julie, you have the freedom to change them up as you see fit. And if you want to mix in things or add some things or whatever, as long as it's not the violating copyright things or whatever, there's some rules there. But you get to change those things up and get to change up the PowerPoint the way that you want. Well, there are some mistakes people make with PowerPoint. I mean, you understand that really, when I first started out as a corporate trainer, PowerPoint didn't even exist. We didn't even have that. I mean, yeah, it had been invented, but projectors cost like $11,000. Then you had to have the software. No business had them. Trainers didn't have them until about halfway through my tenure there with the company I was a corporate trainer for. And what people have tended to forget, or have started to forget nowadays, because they become such an integral part of presentations and workshops, is they've forgotten that they're the presenter. That a PowerPoint is a tool. It is nothing more than a little poster. Little poster things that people you stand up and point to or whatever. That is all that it is. It's an enhancement to your presentation. It is not the presentation. And one of the worst things that people can do with PowerPoint is they let the PowerPoint take over the whole thing. The Borg, Star Trek, resistance is futile. It's like the PowerPoint assimilates the whole thing. And all they do at this point, they take what they're going to say and they write it out word for word basically on the PowerPoint, and then they have slide after slide after slide of nothing but paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and then they stand there and click and go click, read, 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 click, read, 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 and now, basically, they just become a monkey. And I say they become a monkey because any old monkey can do that. Click, click, let's have story time. You know what? As an adult who's sitting here listening to your presentation, I don't need story time. I can read. I've been able to read since the first grade. I don't need somebody to come up here and read to me the PowerPoint. In fact, when people do that to me, it's infuriating to me as a trainer and as a presenter when I see that, because my thought is, you know what, just take the slides from the PowerPoint, print them off, and email them to me. Or send it, or if I'm there, let me walk home with them. I'll read them myself, because I can read. I don't need you to read to me. And if that's all that you've done, it's kind of insulting to the audience. You've actually just taken over you've just become a monkey, and there's really no point to you anymore. When you do a presentation, you want to have a PowerPoint, like, don't be a monkey, which then you talk about for 5 minutes, or more, or less, or whatever. But the focus of the presentation still should be the presenter. And the PowerPoint is a tool that accents that and makes it, more colorful. But again, just a tool. It's not the presentation. Make sure we haven't taken over there. The other thing that a PowerPoint does, or mistake people will make when it comes to the PowerPoint, is they'll want to take every thing that the PowerPoint can do and cram it into a 20-minute presentation, or an hour long, or whatever. And by thing that it can do, I mean all the sounds and the visual stuff, and then you watch it, it's just this big conglomerate mess of bang, 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 boom, 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 cha, 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 ba, 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 ba. I watched a PowerPoint presentation once, where the person had basically written out everything they were going to say. And then they took the, when you write the paragraph up, they'd have each letter zoom in, a little zoom effect, and they attached a noise to every single one of those. Now I'm going to give you 10 seconds right now of time, just to show you how long 10 seconds is. And then I want you to imagine, well, let me give you 10 seconds. Here we go, start. Okay, there's 10 seconds about. I want you to imagine now you got 45 seconds. Because that's about how long it would take for every slide to zoom in with every single letter. Bang, 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 bang. I wanted to stab my face with an ice pick after about 3 minutes of that presentation. It was just awful. And again, it was like this person just wanted to show you everything he could do with PowerPoint. Moderation in all things is such a great thought, great philosophy, and it holds true for PowerPoint, okay? Moderation in all things. Occasionally, if you want to have Ben Stein pop up and say Bueller, that's okay. Occasionally, if you want to have some little zoom or whatever, that's all right. About every 4th or 5th slide. We don't need to be doing everything that PowerPoint can do. Again, don't let this become a distraction. Let it be the powerful tool that it can be. All right. Next, don't shoot yourself in the foot. One of the worst things I see people do is they'll stand up and say something like, and you know what, it's January right now and I'm giving this presentation, and right now the big thing everybody's talking about is New Year's resolutions. And I'll see people, you count how many times you see somebody give a talk about New Year's resolutions or whatever, especially if they've been called on to speak for whatever reason, who stand up their talk and start out and say, oh, I don't know why they asked me to talk about this, because I hate New Year's resolutions. I'm the worst at it. But let me tell you all the reasons why you should have New Year's resolutions. Or make New Year's resolutions. And I'm watching that going, okay, why should I listen to you? You just told me that you hate it, you don't do it, and you're not very good at it. So why am I sitting here wasting my time listening to somebody who doesn't even believe in what they're saying to me? Basically, you just start out your presentation saying, I'm full of crap, now let me talk to you. You've shot yourself in the foot. Don't discredit yourself as a presenter. Don't start out telling me how you don't know anything about what you're about to talk about. And I understand why people do it. They think in their mind they're keeping themselves down at the audience level. Hey, I'm like you. I hate this stuff too. But it doesn't do that. What it really does is just discredit you as a presenter and give them a reason not to listen to you. If you want to do that, you want to say something, I'm okay if somebody stands up in front of me and says, hey, I'm really glad I got asked to talk about this subject because I didn't know very much about it. And I did a lot of research and a lot of study to prepare for this presentation. Let me tell you what I found out. Hey, fantastic, good. I'm like, you were an idiot like me, or at least you didn't know the stuff like I don't know it, but you did all the work for me, so now I can sit back and listen to what you found out. That's okay. You haven't destroyed your credibility, but you still have but you have put yourself down on that audience level if that's what you want to do. But don't do it in a way that discredits you. Don't do it in a way that discredits the people who asked you to talk. You see people talk up and say, call up or stand up and first thing say, well, this person asked me to talk on this topic last night, so I've been working on it till now. So if this talk sucks, don't blame me, blame them. This is essentially what you just said. And you're discrediting people. And you're stabbing people in the back and causing problems for those who've asked you to talk. Hey, you're the presenter, you're a professional, you can handle it. I don't care if they asked you to talk 2 minutes ago. This is what you do. So stand up and handle it, because you can. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't shoot others in the foot. Be careful that you're not, in fact, it's not a bad idea. I mean, I did it with this presentation. Start out and talk about why you're qualified to talk about this subject. I began telling you about my experience as a presenter, as a trainer, and that type of thing. You should be building your credibility before you begin a presentation, not destroying it. Don't shoot yourself in the foot with that type of stuff, with that type of joke or icebreaker, and that's what people do. They use an icebreaker that discredits them. Don't do that. Get a brain, morons. All right, let's talk about the adult brain for a minute and the way the adult brain works. Basically, two things. One, we'll get into why should I care, but also most people tend to learn things by building upon stuff they already know. So if you're trying to present a new subject or new subject material to people or a thought process or an idea that people never thought of before, it's best to try to use examples that draw to things that they do know. Things that they can understand. It's called chunking. And whenever if you're trying to work on your presentation, try to do things or try to present things in a way that ties into things that make sense to them, that they already understand. Use examples from things that everybody knows. Secondly, as adults, now kids are in some ways easier to present to. Some ways. Because they'll listen to an adult simply because they're the adult. Oh, okay, listen to them. Why? Because they said so. Because they're the adult. All right. And then, they have attention span issues. But as far as trying to get them to believe that your message is important, it's really easy when you're talking to kids because they'll believe you just because you're the adult in most cases. When you are talking to adults, it's a little bit different. Because as you get older, by adults I mean like teenage level and up, their time becomes valuable. And you have to take a second to let them know why it matters that they're going to take time out of their day to listen to you. Because they got a lot of things to do, especially like I said today, where they got all kinds of distractions, ones that you won't even notice if they got their iPhone or whatever there, iPad or whatever. So you need to take a second to make sure they understand why they should care. We used to call it with them. And maybe that's a phrase you've heard before, with them. What's in it for me? Make sure throughout your presentation, and definitely the beginning of your presentation, you cover with them why this matters. This stuff matters because you will use it when blah. Or blah, blah, blah. This is important because of blah, blah, blah. Or whatever it is. Make sure they understand that there's a reason they should listen to you, because otherwise they won't. And you've got to incorporate that in throughout your whole time. Either through giving real-life examples that they will experience and making sure they know, hey, this is something you're going to come across, or by telling them the important parts and how this will apply to them in their life. What's in it for me? Okay, next we have the 20-minute rule. Kind of broken that here with this workshop because we're a little bit limited and sometimes you can't. But what you want to try to do is the average adult attention span is about 20 minutes. So about every 20 minutes you want to break things up. And if you're trying to organize something and maybe we've got a new activity or something we're going to do and we're wondering where we would fit it into the workshop, well, if it's a workshop that's about an hour long, I'd fit it somewhere in about the 20-minute mark. And then do that workshop for about 10 or 15 minutes, whatever it is, or not workshop, but that breakout activity or whatever. And then move into the next section. So about every 20 minutes, you want to be trying to break things up. Apologize, we couldn't do that with this workshop. But essentially, that's kind of the thing to go by. And what you'll find is if you're just doing a lot of talking, after about 20-minute mark, no matter how dynamic you are, people are going to start, wonder what's for dinner tonight. Did I leave off the iron? I think I like pink, or whatever. And their mind's going to start to wander. So you got to mix that stuff up. And sometimes it might just be start doing a little more physical demonstration. I know in my workshop on interview and resume writing skills, I got a part halfway through the interviewing section because it's a lot of lecture, but about 20-minute mark through as I'm talking about that, I'll suddenly give them an example of poor nonverbal communication. And I'll walk in and give a bad, let me show you how, and if I was given, I'd be saying, okay, let me show you, if you were interviewing me and I walk in the room like this, whatever, and I like to do this whole little bit and kind of give a physical demonstration of poor body posture and stuff in an interview. And it's really small, but I've changed things up a little bit. I'm not just here talking, I'm now almost doing a little skit for you or whatever. And that type of thing, you can find things every 20 minutes to break stuff up and adjust things. It will help it make things more interesting. Okay, as I mentioned before, good presenter is able to read their audience. You might not be able to see that in the video, but you got Barack Obama, this little girl down here is not even, she's bored out of her mind. But you need to be able to always be looking, and that's kind of what eye contact is about too. It's not just about drawing them in, but it's you keeping tabs on how you're doing. You need to be looking thinking, okay, I need to slow down because I got all these weird, confused looks on people's faces. Let's start over. Let's back up and explain this a different way. Or, okay, everybody's falling asleep, let's get moving. I need to change subject and move on to something else. And again, the bad news is it's almost, in what I've seen and the people I've worked with and helped train and helped teach on presenting, it's almost, in some ways, you have it or you don't. And if you have it, you can become fantastic. If you don't, you can become good, but you'll always kind of struggle with that. And again, it's that ability to read your audience and know the vibe you're getting from them, what works and what doesn't work. Good presenters are always able to build on things because they know, I did this and that went over really, really well. I did that and it flopped, or whatever. It doesn't work for me, or this presentation, or this audience. But you got to be able to really be really good and always be aware of that. Be aware of your audience and what the feedback is that you're getting from them. Secondly, steal. We got, I've lost track now. You got a whole big team of alliance coordinators here. And they have all kinds of tools and techniques and things that they do and examples and stories they've come across. Listen to them and steal from them. A good presentation team, a good training team, a good team of alliance coordinators is the one who shares ideas and is not worried about somebody else stealing their ideas. Okay, we're all in this together. We're all going to go together as a program, grow together as a program, steal from people. Right now I'm feeling guilty about all the people that I haven't got back to lately and sent emails to because I need to do that. We need to share our ideas. Don't be afraid to steal ideas from other people. I'm thinking about 4 things I've stolen from other people in this very workshop I told you right now. So steal things all the time, steal ideas, steal stories, steal examples, and we all can become better. Now you may need to adjust them a little bit. You can't always do it exactly the way that person did. There was a gal who used to work here, had a really cute southern drawl. I can't say things she says. I can't, because I'm not a cute little old lady from the South, you know. And so to try to say and do things exactly the way that she does them wouldn't work for me. But I could take some of the ideas that she has and twist them up a little bit and make them work for me. And that's really what you got to do when I'm talking about when I say steal. Okay, that's from another part of the presentation that we didn't cover today. I use this presentation another time, and we kind of did some different things. But other than that, man, congratulations, you're working for a fantastic company. You got great bosses to work for, great people who let your creativity. I think, I shouldn't say this too loud, but I think of all the jobs here that are available at Stevens Henry, this is probably one of my favorites. If not the favorite, because of what we get to do, get to go present. I think presenting and doing workshops is the most energizing job that there is, and maybe it's because I'm a middle child who was attention starved and likes to stand in front of people, but man, I'm excited for you. Good luck on this. My email address is mlfurman@comcast.net or michael.furman@stevenshenry.edu. Feel free to call me, 435-764-4597. If you have any questions or want some tips, I'm happy to help you on what I know. I don't know everything, but I help you on what I do know. And good luck.